all been following the series of DOJ settlements that have been announced and have gotten a fair amount of publicity. The first with JP Morgan Chase, the one with Citigroup, and most recently Bank of America. When the first settlement was announced, the group was got together, led by Frank Ford, we'll be talking briefly here, because we realized that like a lot of other settlements we saw, there was money in there, but very little that would come directly to deal with the issues that you face as land banks in our city. So Frank will talk about the efforts to bring people together following Ohio, what's come to be known as the Ohio Plan. Talking about the efforts we've got mayors all over Ohio, including the mayor here, Marina Chase Rittenauer, wrote letters to DOJ. We quickly went to them and said, look, before you do the next settlement, make sure you have money in there to do A, B, and C, not just demolition by the mayor. So I want Frank to come up and talk about that. Ed Herman from our office, Ed is an attorney who's worked with us from the very beginning. He's been with us since March of 2011. Talk about where we think the opportunities are, in particular in the Bank of America settlement. There are real opportunities in Bank of America settlement to bring dollars back to land banks throughout Ohio. So Frank, why don't you come up and talk about the Ohio Plan, and Ed, I'm going to have you wrap up with the particulars on the deal itself. So Frank's an amazing guy. He has big back. For those of you who don't know, Frank has that big back. Frank has been all over the country. He really appreciates efforts. We're lucky to have him in thriving communities, and he's been quarterbacking much of this. So sorry.
I better say something pretty useful. So as Jim said, there have been 3 settlements: the Chase, the Citibank, and the Bank of America. I think part of the story is the evolution of those settlements. The Chase was $13 billion, Citi was $7, and Bank of America was $16. When, as Jim mentioned, back in, I think it was November, when the Chase settlement was announced, Jim reached out to the U.S. Attorney in the Northern District, Steve Dettelbach, and said, why don't we convene a meeting to talk about this? And so at Steve's office in Cleveland, we had about 30 people, and we had 15 or 20 people on the phone. And out of that grew an effort over the next 6 months to put together a document which many of you around the room are on or have been participating in. It's called the Ohio Plan. And it was an effort. It's about 110 people who ultimately put effort into this. And it's not a one-dimensional demolition money is clearly the biggest need. But the effort was, what do we need for Cleveland, Ohio? Yeah, much better. What do we need? I'd like to think that I really did this the right way. What do we need for Ohio to recover? And it is, for some communities, demolition is the greatest need. Others, it might be rehab, money for rehab. For others, it's foreclosure prevention money. And for others, it's what do we do with these vacant lots? We need to have resources to use these vacant lots and repurpose them. So it meant bringing people together from north, from south, small towns, rural, big towns, and people with different interests. And it was a challenge. I'd like to believe, though, at the end of the day, what we came up with the Ohio Plan. And if you have not seen this, I don't know if it's on our website. Well, I think it is. So you might want to take a look at it, because I think it's a pretty remarkable document in the scope of it and the fact that it represents so many different interests. $200 million is the ask that's framed in this document. It was submitted to Chase. Didn't go anywhere. We talked to the Chase Settlement Monitor, administrator, and he said, you know what you need to do is you need to try to get these settlements written differently. The problem was, there were 2 problems with the Chase settlement. One, the items that we wanted, the categories of expenditures that we felt were important, were not in there. And second, even if they were in there, the question is, are there required minimums? Because these settlements are drafted to have itemized categories, and then some have a required minimum and some don't. So if there isn't a required minimum, the bank can say, well, it's up to us, we'll just blow that off and not spend money there. The progression, the evolution I talked about earlier is the real story, because by the time you get to the Bank of America settlement, now you have things in there that weren't in there before. You have money for foreclosure prevention with a required minimum. You have money for land banks to spend on demolition and rehab. Required minimums. In fact, even in the city settlement, there is a required minimum of $25 million I almost said billion, but no, it's 25 million. And in the Bank of America settlement, it's 50 million. So the total of $75 million is in there that both those two banks have to spend on interest related, directly related to people in this room and what was represented in the Ohio plan.